Hello and welcome. I'll just give it a minute or so for the feed to load and for people to start joining the session. Good afternoon. Got a really exciting talk for you here today. I think the Facebook stream should be live now on the Trade Decorator Facebook page and in the forum on the group. And I'd like to say a big welcome to everyone for joining today. Welcome to the Trade Decorator Festival, brought to you by the Trade Decorator website for professional painters and decorators, the #1 place to get all of your industry news. And today, this afternoon, we've got a live interview here, which will be focusing on the increasingly important topic of mental health in the workplace. So I'm delighted to say I'm joined here by Martin Lockham from Mates in Mind, which is a charity that enables organisations of any size to improve their workforce's mental health. And also Rick Lasher here, who has founded the organisation SEOUL, which is an acronym for Supporting Others and Understanding Life, a very active Facebook community that Rick started. So, gents, welcome. Great to have you along.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
So before we get started, I've got some questions, but I'd also love to hear your questions as well. If you pose them, I'll ask them, and hopefully Rick and Martin will be able to answer them for you. So do, if you're following on Facebook, ask questions on the Facebook feed, or if you're on Zoom here, there's a Q&A button, or use the chat and I'll pose those questions for you. So to kick us off, perhaps Rick, maybe I could ask you for a bit of the story behind why you started SEOUL. What it means, support others and understand life.
Yeah, it's just basically something I made up myself, an acronym. It all started off when, well, sort of through my teenage years, I started to experience a little bit of anxiety and sort of depression and that. I didn't really know. I mean, I didn't have a bad upbringing or anything. I just have a very overactive mind. And as I got into the painting decorating, I've done that straight from school. So I've been in sort of nearly 30 years. I've been self-employed for just over sort of 20 years. I found that I was channeling a lot of my anxiety and depression through to my work. Basically, for example, I'd be on my own a lot, so I'd think a lot. I would struggle with not being good enough, although my customers are all, I'm always busy, always saying you're so good. A little bit like an anorexic person, thinking that they're still fat when they're skinny. It's a little bit like that. I couldn't sort of, get my head around it. And also I'd have a lot of anxiety with time and deadlines. Again, customers will find it's all sort of stuff that I created, just from myself, really. And so, yeah, that got, I say, it started in my teens. And then as I went in paint and decorating, it got a lot worse. So much so that I was having real bad meltdowns at work. I mean, there's one episode when I obliterated my pasting table. I was a bit gutted because I really like that pasting table. I hadn't had a good one since. And just trying to put a light spin on it, because obviously it's very serious. But yeah, so I obliterated me pasting table, had a meltdown. My wallpaper weren't going well. I had a complete meltdown, headbutting the walls, completely lost my crap, basically. So I ended up in hospital for a week in the mental health department. And then also had some other episodes when I was just having meltdowns. I even started to overdose. I didn't want to be here anymore. It left me with those choices: either kill myself. I couldn't carry on as I was, so really it was either kill myself or change. So I started listening to a lot of audiobooks that have really helped me so much. They've just changed the way I look at life. Don't get me wrong, I still have the meltdowns. I visualize it as a road that sort of, you're on a road and you've got a side road. That side road is still there, but I tend to either drive past it or I just go down a little way and turn back again. I don't go right down to the bottom of that road or a hole. I don't go as deep. I get out quicker because of these teachings. So basically, yeah, cut a long story short, I got load of audio books on my phone. I thought, right, I've got to change. I'm going to lose everything here. If not my own life, I'm going to lose my family. I was weighing on them. I got 3 kids and a mortgage and a wife, you know, and it was wearing on them. So I thought, right, let's do something about it. So we got all these books and I was learning. I was starting to really change. And so I got all these books together and I would listen to them while I'm working. We got a lot of time to watch paint dry. So that's quite good. And basically I then put all the, it just sort of channeled into me what I learned into these, into this page I created called SEOUL. And I thought what I'll do, try to every day, is share the stuff that's basically saved my life, literally saved my life. There's so much stuff I can share. I mean, we've only got under an hour, so I won't harp on too much. And Martin will probably want to have a little
no, you carry on, Richard.
But there's so much stuff, from breath work to meditation and changing your relationship with the universe. I mean, I'll just share something with you right now. I'm feeling very, very anxious at the moment. I'm calmed down a little bit now because this is my first proper Zoom event. And we have to make a relationship with our body, knowing that it's just fight or flight. It's a mechanism that it's not going to kill us. The trouble is our subconscious mind thinks at the moment I'm being chased down the road by a tiger, but I'm not. That would be an objective, fear. This is a subjective one. So subconscious doesn't know the difference between the two. So I'm shaking a little bit, but I've changed my relationship with it. I'll give you a quick example. I think it was Bruce Springsteen when he used to say, before he went on stage, "Are you nervous?" He said, "No, I'm not nervous. I'm pumped up." So I try and change my relationship with the feelings, if that makes sense. That's just a little tip there. That's something that I tend to do. Yeah, and I think the secret of it is to go within with meditations and breath works. And the trouble is we're in a society now where we're trying to have to prove ourselves out there, and there's nothing out there that's going to really, you know, I've been there. I've chased all the pleasure things like a new house, you know, new items, new stuff, you know, and it kept me happy for a few days, and then I was depressed again. So I've started to realize it's an inside job. A little bit like, great example I'll use, being on a sort of construction, you know, decorators forum. Going out there for stuff is like building your house on sand. Going within is like building your house on a concrete foundation.
There we go. So
yeah, I like to use that analogy on, you know, and yeah, it's sort of, yeah, so a lot of the stuff that it's brilliant. I mean, I can, the thing is, if you go onto the page, I'm sure Ben's going to put a link on there.
Yeah, we'll share a link in the chat, and there'll be lots of other sort of, there's that, and there'll be other sort of further resources that we can share throughout this session as well. So and yeah, and brilliant. I mean, fantastic how you've used that experience, Rick, to not turn around not only your own life but also down to support others, because it's probably a far too common story that I think sort of within the industry. So maybe Martin, I'll bring you on to Mates in Mind as a charity, and for you personally, I'm sure this is a topic that's very, very important to you. Perhaps you could share for the listeners the purpose behind Mates in Mind, how that starts.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you very much for having us, first of all, Ben. Yeah, so basically we're Mates in Mind. We're a mental health charity that work with workplaces to improve their mental health program and provisions to their employees. We specifically work with the construction industry to actually connect with their employees, because previous to Mates in Mind, it was felt that some of the mental health resources that were available were very much more towards the white collar office-based employees, and it wasn't really connecting with a lot of the construction employees and the supply chain within that, which obviously is huge. And so Mates in Mind effectively started working with various different organisations and tailoring a programme of support for those organisations to actually create a more relevant mental health programme, to actually just raise awareness and understanding of mental health first and foremost, and really start to beat down the stigma that surrounds mental health, especially in male-dominated workplaces like within construction. It's so important that we start to understand mental health and start to kind of destigmatize it and start to realize that it's okay to have those conversations. And that's really what we do as a charity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, particularly for the construction industry, for male dominant, like, why is it such an important topic, do you think?
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I think what we know is that within construction, unfortunately, 2 people will take their own life every single working day, which is a horrible statistic. And again, it's really about people not feeling comfortable talking about mental health and leaving things until they get to a real crisis point where they feel that they've got no other option, they've got nowhere to reach out. And if we can start people talking about mental health at an earlier stage, we can start to understand that it doesn't have to get to crisis point and it's okay to talk about those things. So it's really, really important that we raise that awareness within the industry.
Mm-hmm. And Rick, like, how do you think workplaces could better support it? Obviously, they've got challenges that sometimes, often, maybe you're self-employed, or a lot of people out there might be, either small businesses or self-employed, or working on projects. What have you got any sort of ideas about how they can help support?
Well, because I work on my own all the time, so I'm just a sole trader and do sort of domestic stuff, so I can't speak for a firm. But there's probably a lot of self-employed sole traders watching this. Get yourself onto YouTube, go on Audible, download and listen to if you've got plenty of time to listen and learn this stuff. The thing of it is, again, talking about going outside, people are quite happy to go to the gym and look, pucker, but we don't work on our minds enough. And that's the engine, that's so important. I mean, you're not going to get this stuff. If you work it, it works. You're not going to get a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger by going to the gym once a month. But if you put this stuff in, I'm living proof. I didn't want to be here, I started overdosing, but it's changed my life. It is just unbelievable stuff. And the authors and the people I can just, like say, recommend it. So I would say, yeah, you've got time in your hands. Great, listen to the radio. I break it up a little bit. I have a bit of radio on, talk to me customers. But I've got that facility there. So it's time used well. I mean, it's a great opportunity. Again, I'm speaking from somebody who just works for myself. Not a firm as such, but maybe Martin might be able to.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rick. Martin, what would be most important for you?
Yeah, I think what we see a lot of the time is that initial awareness piece. So getting people to talk about mental health. If we can create a more of an open culture within a workplace, so that mental health is widely spoken about. I mean, we all see physical health everywhere. You go onto a construction site, there are posters about your hard hat, your steel cap toe shoes, all of these things. We're constantly looking at health and safety from that perspective, but we should treat mental health in the same way. If we can get people talking about things and create that open culture whereby we break down those barriers for people reaching out for support that exist at the moment, that's going to be a benefit. And that's really what the work with organizations is to do. How can we break down those barriers for people reaching out to support? How can we get people, guys on building sites, how can we get them talking about mental health? It's not an easy thing to do. But if we can just have that raising of awareness and actually realize not just your own mental health, but spotting the signs in other people and reaching out to those people, because they could be struggling, and you just simply asking if they're okay and listening to them and signposting can be such a great help to those individuals. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to raise awareness.
And you mentioned barriers and things that people have to overcome. What are the big challenges or the barriers? Obviously, we talked a little bit about sort of stigma or not wanting to do that. Is that the big one, do you think?
Yeah, stigma is a really, really big one, and self-recognition is a real issue as well. You're often not the first to realize in yourself that you're not particularly well. Often, as we say, people around you might spot that for the last 3-4 days you've been unusually quiet, or even unusually extroverted. You might not recognize it in yourself first and foremost, which is why we ask people to look out for their mates. Mates in mind is keeping in mind those work colleagues, those people that you see on the site, and thinking, this isn't like John or whoever it is that you see in, day out. I'm going to just take him to the side and ask him if he's okay. So that self-recognition is really important. The stigma obviously is a huge issue. Mental health has that perception that if you admit to struggling with something that you're weak, and it's absolutely not that. So those stigma plays a huge part of the barrier for people actually reaching out and asking for support and help, and that's the thing that we really need to knock down and let people realize that it's absolutely okay to speak about mental health. We all have it, and it all varies day to day, and it's a normal thing. We've got to talk about it.
Yeah, and you're nodding along there, Rick, to some of those points. Would you agree? Is there anything else you'd share from sort of your experience?
Yeah, 100%. A few years back, I done a course on hypnotherapy, and I got to learn that sort of 95% of our day, on average, were coming from our subconscious mind. So we're an autopilot. 70% of those programs in that subconscious mind are negative, repetitive, redundant stuff. So you're coming from that a lot of the time. So if you're on autopilot and you're going to think to yourself, oh, all of a sudden I'll start feeling a bit crappy here, you're sort of coming from those programs. So I just wanted to add to it's being mindful of it as well, like Martin was saying. And it's like he's saying also, it's good that someone else can, be there and sort of recognize it when you can't even see it in yourself. But we are sort of programmed in a certain way, and a lot of that comes from from that subconscious mind, whatever you're doing. That's why this is good to sort of look into ways of otherwise you'll just live in the same reality day in and day out and thinking, well, nothing, if you don't change anything, nothing changes, does it? And you're thinking, and you're waiting for something out there. Again, it's an inside job. I'll probably say that 100 times, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is. Go within or go without, and that's got a double meaning to it. So yeah, and like Martin was saying, speak to people. I've got a couple of paint and decorators actually that I'm really good friends with, and we'll speak. One of my mates, we've been on the phone for 2 hours, we've got their hands free on, so we're working at the same time, and we're sharing our experiences, and it helps so much. So if you've got some, you can make some friends. Like I made a really good friend on the, thanks to Paula inviting me on here. And it turns out he only lives up the road, sort of half an hour up the road. And then we got so much in common. So if you can find friends, and again, it's not about grab a Snickers. No Snickers needed. You cry if you need to cry. Big boys don't cry. Yes, they do. It's a mechanism that we've got in us, and it's like a pressure cooker. And if you don't let that out, and you're quiet, and you hold that in, there you go. Your life could be over, because before you know it, like with me, before you know it, you're overdosing and not wanting to be here, and it gets so bad. I've got so much compassion. I don't judge anybody, because it was so painful for me, that's why I now want to help other people, because it's one of those things that you wouldn't wish on your own worst enemy, you really wouldn't. And that's, so yeah, talk about it. And it's an ego thing. You see, we've got this ego that tries to protect us, to say, oh no, I mustn't look silly. I grew up with it. My mum and dad, what are they thinking of me? Oh, what do they think? Oh, they're going to think you're a bit weird, aren't you, crying at work? Sod it. Be open, be yourself, and do not be afraid to come out, because if you hold that in, it will and that pressure cooker that will explode like it did when I had my meltdown. And I've had a few of them, and I don't recommend it. I nearly lost my lovely wife and my kids. I nearly lost them all because she couldn't do it anymore. So that road, don't go down to the bottom of that road. You might have to, because suffering is our greatest motivator. Because if I hadn't hit that low, I wouldn't be hit where I am now. I don't recommend it. Adversity doesn't get any easier. However, for me, it's brought me on this path. But that's really what we want employers to do. We want people to stop getting to the point of need. We want people to be upskilled, made aware of mental health, general awareness for everyone, not just a select few. Everyone within an organization should have just a real light touch general awareness of what mental health is. And as I said, how do you spot signs that somebody else is suffering, and how do you start that conversation with that person? Because it's so important. It can completely change somebody's outlook on that day, on their week, on their life. If they can just have somebody to talk about and say, actually, I share a very similar problem with you, and we're not going to solve this problem now, but I can definitely signpost you to somebody who is able to support you and help you and get you the help that you need before you reach that crisis point, before, as you said, Richard, before it gets to that point where you're having to turn to alternatives, which we don't want people to do. And that's really what we want to happen in the workplace. Provide people with that general level of awareness,
and give them the support so that we can stop people getting to, you know, stress, continual anxiety. Let's try and remove those barriers if we can.
And it's why it's such an important conversation to be having today out in the public as well. You know, is so thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Where should people go to sort of find out more, or for some more support about this, or if people have got other questions? We'll take some questions as well from the audience, hopefully, in a minute. We've had some fantastic comments already sort of so far. Susan Kennedy says, Rick, you sound like you've been doing this all your life, these talks, so fantastic.
Thank you.
Here, I think, you know,
that means a lot.
Some of your stories.
Thank you.
So no, and it's brilliant. But yeah, we've shared the link to the SEOUL Facebook group on the chat here in Zoom and on the Facebook comments. So do obviously take a look at that. I'm not sure, Martin, is there anywhere else that you'd like to?
Yeah, if you go to the Mates in Mind website, which is www.matesinmind.org, there are a lot of free resources that we provide on there for people to actually just raise their general awareness about mental health. There's a lot of different resources that we provide for people to kind of get and understand for themselves, and for employers as well. So if you've got, you know, regardless of size, you don't have to be a huge multinational. We work with SMEs and the self-employed. How can you kind of improve your working environment to make it a bit more or bring more mental health awareness to the workplace? So there's a lot of resources that we provide on the website there.
Brilliant. And Rick, what should sort of people expect from the Facebook group?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say, Ben, as we just sort of made it public, that group, if they can't find that group, if they can request me, Rick Bo Lusher, on Facebook. My middle name is Michael. It's not Bo. It's just my love for Strongbow. But yeah, if you just find me on Facebook, if you can't find me on that link, then bear with me, and I'll invite you into, you know, into the group. Yeah. Sorry, Ben, I lost your first question. What did you ask me?
I was just asking what people could expect sort of from joining the group.
Basically, I will be sharing. I share on their books that have really helped me, and just ways to change your relationship with, or find out a lot about yourself, really, and authors that have helped me. Methods of meditation that I've done, and there's a thing on there called, again, I won't go into it because you'll find it all on the page, Wim Hof breathing. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. I can now hold my breath up to nearly 3 minutes now. This is it alters your state of mind. So
you'll be free diving and surfing.
Well, you never know, that might come in handy one day, Ben, but Yeah, definitely. So it's just basically sort of understanding you're not this meat suit and this mind that walks around. I mean, I don't want to get too spiritual. I don't want to put people off here, but we're infinite soul. There's much more to us basically than what we do and what we are, you know. And when you see beyond that, you can go onto a different thought pattern, and that in itself can make you, you know, because so much pressure. It's like with me, with my work, I'd almost think that my work was representing me as a person. So when my work went wrong, I'd have a meltdown and think, oh God, I'm so rubbish. You know, you were right all along, mind you, because your mind is always feeding you a load of negative stuff. You know, or if I was behind on a job, I think, see, you're rubbish, you're no good. And that will keep giving you that stuff. So by doing breathing stuff and meditations and learning the knowledge of self, basically, your life you'll literally reprogram yourself. And that's why I'm saying it's important to use that time wisely, you know.
Brilliant. Yeah, great. Couldn't agree more. We've also got some people who've been commenting on Facebook. We haven't sort of got a specific question, but James Osborne's absolutely been sharing some good ideas. I'd love to get your take on them, but about just saying good morning to someone can actually help change their whole day on the site. It's okay not to be okay. I love that phrase, very important to share. Maybe it would be a good idea to have mental health awareness on our vans to help break down the barriers, that it's okay.
Brilliant.
To open up.
Awesome.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, that is superb.
Any other sort of tips that you've sort of seen? We've also got a question actually just come in, I think, here from David. Let's it's quite a long question. Give me a second to read it out. Yeah, he's building a health tech startup to understand the mental health and emotional well-being impact of digital habits. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have noticed sort of the impact of sort of digital and perhaps being on our phones the whole time.
Yeah,
but absolutely,
massively.
I think there's pros and cons for it, because obviously through COVID, what we've seen, especially in the workplaces, and we're using it now, there's been a huge uptake in the likes of Zoom and Teams, which is great for connecting with people. You know, if you're able to get hold of someone and speak to a friend or family that we wouldn't have been able to do 10 years ago like this, it's been a really, you know, it has been life-changing for people to be able to see a face and actually reach out to somebody. So there are real benefits for it. There are also obviously negatives to it. You know, the devil makes you know, whatever it may be for your thumbs. You know, if you've got downtime and you've got nothing to do, you can get onto, you know, whatever it may be. You can place a bet within seconds on a mobile phone if you're away. There are so many dangers to it as well. So there are definite pros and cons of the digital age. Again, communication, connection, fantastic, but there are definitely pitfalls to it without question.
Yeah, Rick.
I've got something else, if it's okay, to share that's also helped me. It's just come up. Again, back to my sort of hypnotherapy days, I learned that we're in what we call theta stage energy waves when we're growing up. And from the last trimester in the womb up to the age of 7, we're like sponges. So we are learning all that stuff. Obviously, we can't go back to that age again. The only other time you get yourself in theta wave is just before you wake up, or when you're going to sleep, or when you're in hypnosis. So basically what I do, and this sounds a little bit like woo-woo and airy-fairy, but there's a thing called on YouTube, Selflove meditation. And I've had some really good feedback with it. Basically, you put your earphones on while you're falling asleep, and it doesn't matter if you fall asleep, it's still going in. It's basically, you know, because we are infinite love, and we get deprogrammed as we're growing up into being negative. So love is the highest power. So if you then sort of reprogram yourself with just basically this bloke saying, I love myself over and over again, but it then gets programmed into the subconscious. And just buy yourself some earphones, fall asleep with that in you, or anything else that's positive affirmations when you're in that theta stage and that theta wave, you see, because that's when it reprograms. There's no good. I mean, you can look during the day and saying, oh, I love myself in the mirror. It's not going in the subconscious. You need to be in that wave length, and that's when you catch yourself or you can go to hypnosis. They're not the cheapest. You can do a lot of this stuff yourself. There's so much on YouTube. Again, like Martin was saying, it's real good stuff. It's a real benefit, you know. All the online and the digital world. So you can help yourself more than what you think you can. And again, I'll be sharing. I try and post every day, and I share a lot of this stuff on my SEOUL page.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, great tip. We've got a few people. I think you guys being able to open up about this is sort of sparking a few people to share some of their own stories. Brian here sort of sharing about his low point back in 2017, and he said the statement that saved his life was sort of suicide as a permanent solution to a temporary problem, which really kicked home and something he never forgot. I mean, a great phrase when some of these clips of wisdom, isn't it, that kind of come to us hopefully in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's why it's so important that we talk about things, because you know, we're not talking to people to counsel them, we're not talking to people to cure them, but we're talking to them to listen and support them, and then support them to or signpost them to somewhere who can help them. So if you have found someone who's at a crisis point, then there are people like the Samaritans that people can speak to. You know, if we're earlier than that in the stage, just talking and listening to people about the problems that they might be having can help. You know, shared experiences. So absolutely, yeah, talking about those things is so important. And that's why we've got to break down this stigma of, you know, the big tough bloke. I'm not going to talk about my feelings. I'm not going to talk about, you know, the stress I'm under. I'm not going to admit to these. We need to talk about them. We need to get them out of the way, basically.
For sure. And David shares some more stats which are, you know, highlight, I think, the point you're making, Martin, as well, just how important this is. I think this is in in Germany is saying where he currently lives, the third most popular reason for calling in sick is due to mental health issues caused by work. And I think it's been increasing recently. It's the only category that's sick leave that's been increasing. It's cost billions of
yeah, well,
pounds.
That's right. The HSE in the UK report that around 55% of all lost days can be attributed to stress, anxiety, or depression. So well over half of people time off. The more worrying statistic for us, I'm sorry, I didn't actually catch the name of who made the comment there about Germany.
That was David, yeah.
Okay, David, yeah. Well, within the UK, we estimate from the work that we've seen that between 60 to 90% of those people will report a different reason for that absence. So it will be, I'm off work because of a bad back, or I'm off work because I have a cold or a man flu, if you like, when actually the issue is that it could be stress or anxiety or depression, but because they don't feel that they're in a workplace that has that open culture where it's okay to say that actually it was because I was feeling down, I was feeling depressed, it was because I was stressed. What we want people to be able to do is feel that they can say that I'm feeling stressed. And if it's a work-related issue, then that workplace has a duty of care to look at why has this happened and how can we stop this being a reoccurring thing. And obviously going back to things like stress risk assessments are there for a reason, to stop people having that continual level of stress, which then builds up, gets to people having to take time off. They come back to work, they take time off again, they come back to work, they take time off again. And unfortunately, that level of stress builds up to a point where people feel they have no alternative. And that's when you then hit crisis point, and we unfortunately see the suicide levels rise.
I mean, absolutely. It completely makes total sense, right, to be investing in this, and because it's so foreseeable and it's so preventable, isn't it? So if there are any more questions, do please post them on the Facebook channel. I keep sort of flicking my eyes across there. James, another good comment that customers, yes, might be weirded out slightly if you're just saying I love you to yourself in the mirror. So maybe a good idea to keep that to the early morning and the evening to yourself. Maybe we haven't quite got to that point yet.
That's another thing. Humor is very important, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, yeah, and talk to your GP. This is Vincent. You know, or even if your partner tells you you're a grump all the time, you know, they can be great support, and it's great to, you know, get support from them, or perhaps, you know, you might need to get medication or help yourself feel better in yourself, find ways around it. So I don't know if you guys have any final comments. I've really enjoyed the last half an hour. I hope that everyone who's been listening in to this conversation has too. I hope you found it really useful. Like we say, the matesinmind.org website and the SEOUL Facebook group, absolutely go there and join the community and take a look at some of those resources. But I think above all, try and take some of these comments, some of these ideas and suggestions into sort of your work and your kind of day-to-day routines above anything, you know, and one person at a time, one workplace at a time, perhaps we can all take some steps to solving this crisis, this epidemic of mental health together.
Good.
Great. Well, Rick, Martin, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your story, for sharing your insights and your wisdom. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks,
for
everyone.
Us on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.